Guys, what's up? It's Marie with Swipe in the City.
Hey, you've got Michelle here, and we also have a very special guest today. He used to appear a little more frequently, but he's been a little busy for us. Who are you? You want to introduce yourself to our new fans?
Yeah, it's Mike here. What's up?
The enthusiasm is just so fucking overwhelming. Full disclosure, we're recording on a Monday after all working very long full days. So we're going to try to keep the energy up here. But yeah, we have Mike, the producer, back in studio. And yeah, Mike, what's going on? How's life? What's new?
I also didn't tell you too. I got my vaccine on Friday.
Woo! Number one or two?
J&J.
Oh, I didn't know they re-released it.
Yeah, no blood clots for me. No, yeah, I felt like shit all weekend. I feel like I still have a little lethargia, so I'm going to try to wake up for you. But yeah, it's good stuff. I lost my taste. I got COVID like a month and a half. And I was like, this ain't shit, I'm fine. And then I lost my taste, and I was like, okay, never again. Like this, I'm not dealing with this shit. No.
Do you have your taste back yet? You do, right? Do you want to talk about what we're drinking?
Yeah, what even is it called? It's
Smashberry?
Something berry, Smashberry. Yeah. Compliments of Marie. But yeah, now I have my taste fully back, I think. I have a friend whose wedding I'm going to this weekend who has not had...
What does he live for? Did he lose a bunch of weight?
No, surprisingly. So, I know.
I was going to say, I was thinking about it, and I was like, damn, I would be so skinny.
For real.
I would just be only drinking, like, vodka on the rocks and eating lettuce and, unsalted chicken.
Why not?
Ew. You just sound so psycho. Well, awesome. We're super excited to have Mike back in the studio, IRL, no COVID. And yeah, should we get into today's topic, or do you got anything going on with you, Michelle?
That is a good question. I'm trying to think. With the way we've been releasing episodes, I'm like, I don't know if anything I say that's a follow-up to the last episode is relevant or not, because we may not have released it yet. No, I have a little dating story, but it fits into the topic a little bit later. Other than that, I impulsively decided that I'm going to go see Tiesto this Friday.
What?
Yeah. So it's going to be real interesting. But I've been listening to Tiesto since like I was 8. So I'm pretty pumped. It kind of popped up on Instagram and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. So I'll have some updates on what going to a big show is like, these days. Other than that, yeah, jumping into our topic. Basically today, what we think we're going to talk about is toxic dating, toxic relationships. We've got a couple different elements of that to walk through. But you never know. We could take this in a totally different direction, and it might be an episode about, Marie's cat noises. So TBD on that. Let's jump in starting with some warning signs. So from anything from like a profile to a first date, like those really early warning signs.
And just kind of for general context, because when we were talking about toxicity, we kind of went in a bunch of different directions. Urban Dictionary, our most reliable source, defines it as when the relationship between two people is toxic or dangerous, they're slowly destroying each other but don't see it. They're unhealthy, blinded by their romance, a kind of abusive relationship. It is poisonous to the individuals emotionally and spiritually. Mike, what are your thoughts? I see your face.
I kind of checked out in the middle of that definition.
Classic Mike.
No, it kind of made me think of this one Facebook group that we may have tried to hack into. I think women are much more aware of initial signs and sometimes read too much into it. Sometimes you draw conclusions. Sometimes you're listening to other usually women, way too much, and then like immediately like you have this like step-by-step reason why this person's undateable at that point. And I think it's inaccurate sometimes it is accurate, but I would say don't jump to conclusions right away. I would say men are more behaviorally aware. We don't really see signs immediately for the most part. I would like to say I do. I'm pretty good. I mean, being in sales, I'm pretty good at reading people like initially, but men in general, I think, are behaviorally respondent. Is that a word?
Mm-hmm. I mean, those are both words. I don't know if that's a term, but I like it. We'll be adding that to Urban Dictionary after this episode. No, I think that's a really good point, because what you say is interesting about bringing things up to friends, or in these kind of like public forums or semi-public forums. A lot of what I see happen there is that one girl had one negative experience, and so she's not maybe not as emotionally mature or self-aware, and so she's going to apply that to every other experience and say, well, if this happens, without context, right? If this happens, then XYZ. And that's not human nature. Like, again, I think we'll dig into this a little bit more later, but like every relationship is different. So it's kind of like, I mean, there are certain things that are toxic across the board, but just because, Tawny, I don't know, I'm making up names. Tawny, I don't know. I had a Red Bull. I don't know if it's going to kick in or not.
Yeah, Tawny's fine. Is it male or female?
Tawny's female, and the male in this story is Chad. I don't know, y'all. Anyways, if Tawny and Chad have a real fucked up relationship because of how they interact with each other, and because neither of them communicate, and then one of them learns from that, or maybe seeks out therapy, or whatever the case may be, it doesn't mean that their next relationship or their next date is also going to be toxic. And I think what happens, again, especially in some of these like more public forums, is they're like, oh, that person's just a piece of shit. And it's like, I mean, maybe, or maybe that person was a piece of shit in your situation.
Or maybe they had a bad day. Like, I think too, and like Mike, you kind of mentioned, like really early on, girls seeing like one red flag and saying like, nope, that's a deal breaker. Like, not going to put up with it. Because I don't know, maybe something I've heard is like, he didn't pay for the first date. He didn't even like offer to pay. Oh, the audacity, right? But like, just because, I don't know, maybe he was like short on cash that day. Whatever. I mean, that might be a red flag. But to me, I feel like it's not about the individual red flag, but how many red flags there are. Like, do we have a whole garden of red flags? Do we have like a couple? Maybe an orange flag?
There's so much to unwrap there.
Shouts out to PM Jams for Marie's new favorite term.
Shit, no, there's like a few points I wanted to put there. One of them being like, you girls gossip. You do. Mm-hmm. You know the same people, especially Austin. As big as Austin is, I feel like it's fucking small. Mm-hmm. We all know the same people, ironically. But no, like you, not to point fingers, but there are some forums out there girls like to hop on, and it turns into this whole cancel culture war where it's like, oh, this guy, like, don't date him. He's a fucking piece of shit. Like, he took me out on a date a year ago, did this, this, and this. And there's no room for, like, getting better or, like, it's just not fair. It's like, another thing about, like, so, like, maybe he went to therapy, right? Another thing about therapy is it's becoming more popular amongst men. It's becoming, like, more acceptable to actually go, when I want to say, like, maybe even 5 years ago. Yeah. If I told my friends that I was thinking about going to therapy, like, get the fuck out of here. Like, who are you? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you like tie it to cancel culture, because I was listening to a podcast the other day about cancel culture. Shout out to Mike Johnson and talking it out. But it was a really interesting discussion, and that was one of the things that they really emphasized was with cancel culture, you don't give the person or people a chance to learn and grow. And just, I think generally for human existence, that's pretty fucking important. So, I mean, I think that's a really good point. I think there's certain things that perhaps we maybe shouldn't ignore, but a lot of the things that these people are looking at are definitely very minor red flags.
Yeah, I feel like that being said, though, there are some like definitive warning signs. So I went on, let's see, what's today? Man, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Basically, I went on a first date with this guy like 2 weeks ago. I think it was before my trip. And we'll call him Tom. I don't know. I'm gonna come. Tawny, Tom. They're all T's today. And then our first date was like pretty brief. I was like heading out to meet some other people. So we just had a couple of drinks and it was fine. So I was like, yeah, I'll see him again. And then we went out like last weekend and there were a couple of like just weird behavioral shifts. Like initially we were just having a couple of drinks and good conversation, like seemed to be on the same page. And then we met up with one of his friends before going out to like another spot to meet a couple of people. And there was a pretty definitive like behavioral shift. The way he was interacting was different. The way that he was responding to things was different. Like just a pretty immediate change. Whereas like obviously, you know, if you're drinking with someone over the course of the night, you'll see just kind of like them get more intoxicated or whatever. So long story short, noticed a couple of things, and then the next day I even though like already so that's what had happened. That evening I asked him just like a really specific question that I knew the answer to. I wasn't trying to like bait him, but I was just like, hey, and he just like lied directly to my face about it. And I was like, okay, it's kind of a red flag here. He's probably a little too drunk to have a conversation around this. I'll wait. I'll bring it up tomorrow. And so then the next day when I brought it up, his immediate reaction, instead of being like, yeah, I was drunk, I didn't want to like you to get mad, like sorry, or like, oh, I was just drunk, like blah, blah, blah. He was like, when did you ask me that? When did I say that? He immediately got defensive, turned it around on me, and then he was like, well, like, you were outside smoking cigarettes last night. And I was like, you don't smoke. First of fucking all, I wasn't, like, wasted last night. I was drinking, but I was fully aware of the entire evening. Second of all, I don't smoke cigarettes, and like I didn't get into it, but I was like, that's actually like, you even mentioning that is like a trigger for me, but I didn't get into that. And I was like, I know for a fact that I wasn't, but the fact that he tried to take him being caught lying and immediately try to like gaslight me with something else, I was just like, nope, that's too many. Like, that's too many kind of warning signs to me over the course of, like, one situation.
Yeah. Fuck him. No, one of my favorite psychologists I'm listening to right now, who's actually becoming, like, a controversial figure, unfortunately. Just, like, cancel anybody for anything any day. But, no, Jordan B. Peterson, really renowned psychologist. He harps on telling the truth at all times in every aspect of your life. There's no reason to not tell the truth. It gets you to where you want to be. It avoids conflict, all that shit. But yeah, what that guy pulled, I took this college course called Logic and Knowledge, and it still sticks in my mind. It's probably my favorite course ever. It needs to be mandatory in like fucking high school. Because it explains how to have a discussion rather than an argument. And it's like, if you're talking to him about a certain question you brought up that he may or may not have lied to you about, and he suddenly changes the subject to something that you did, that's called a red herring. where you're literally just dodging it and then redirecting, and it's such an unfair, immature response. Like, fuck that guy.
Yeah, and I think the first thing that she mentioned was that he acted like a vastly different person between when it was just him and her and then him and his boys. I think that's also a sign of immaturity. But like, all right, fine, maybe it's this group, or like maybe whatever, like red flag, right? Put it in the bag. But then the fact that he took it another step further, and to me it's like the way somebody reacts when you confront them, especially if you confront them in a respectful way. Like, it's one thing if you came out and you're like, you fucking lied to me last night, you fucking asshole. Like, that's one thing. But I would assume that you didn't say that. I hope. And like, that's a totally different conversation. If you open the conversation in a way that it isn't attacking, then there's no reason to be on the defense.
Yeah, and no, it was definitely more so like, hey, just wanted to like bring up this conversation. And then, yeah, just that response to it, I was like, oof, yeah, no, that's going to be a no from me, dog. What are some of the things that y'all would say are definitely more of those, like we mentioned, some things are just like, oh, bad day, bad night, if they didn't pay for your meal, or, whatever, they show up a little bit late, like that shit happens. What would you guys say are some of those warning signs of like someone who's either in like a toxic place or the potential to be a toxic partner?
It usually comes out with alcohol. You'll see. Thank you, Lynn.
The tambourine.
He agrees.
Just letting everybody know I'm talking. No, you can see it when people are drunk. Sometimes they'll have little breakdowns, and without, getting specific, a friend of mine may or may not have been berated on the street one night.
Say what?
Yeah, a new girl in his life. She just completely berated him, said, I can never see myself marrying you. You have such a low status that, like, I should be with somebody else. And, the guy's texting me. He's like, I've never felt so humiliated in my life. And sure enough, next day, no problem. Just brush it under the rug. I'm like, yo, that's what happened with that, because that needs to be addressed. There's something wrong. And the only way that, you think that that's okay now is you're being manipulated, unfortunately. And you're probably in a toxic relationship and you're blinded. So,
well, I was going to ask, how much of that is a certain level of, like, quote, toxicity on his part too, right? Like, in that sense, it kind of seems like it's going both ways. Again, like, I don't know what happened after the fact. Did she come back and say, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I was so drunk, and he's buying it? Or...
Well, yeah, they're both... Neither of them should be in a relationship. If you can't be happy on your own, I can smell codependence from like a mile away now. Okay, I used to be that, and now I can see it everywhere.
Coming out this year, our candle line, starting with Codependence by Mike the producer.
No, yeah, you can tell when people are independently happy and don't need fucking anybody. And then you can see when people brush shit under the rug like that, and like, oh no, it's okay. Like, she didn't mean it.
Question. Because especially when it comes to that stuff, and like, I think about that for myself personally, like, having dealt with, we've talked about mental health a lot on this, having dealt with my own depression and trying to like kind of pull myself out of one of those states. And like, I can honestly say, like, I probably am a little bit toxic for my poor boyfriend right now. And, like, what are your thoughts when it comes to, I guess, just those ebbs and flows of like toxicity? Like, you could, like, coming out of that, and what kinds of things do you think need to happen?
Well, your stepdad touched on it. I did listen to an episode or two.
Whoa.
No, he said, like, you can date people with depression or anxiety. It's a matter of, like, what are they contributing, and, is it a positive experience? And you're going to go through ebbs and flows. But as long as you continue to work on yourself, like, it's survivable. It's something you work on. It doesn't mean you should be alone forever, obviously. But yeah, if you're taking strides, and that's one thing, but when you see like repeated patterns and nothing's getting better, that's a fucking issue.
Yeah. I would also like disagree with you a little bit in the sense of that, like, because you're dealing with your own mental health, that makes you sort of, or in any way, like, toxic in that relationship. Because when I think about toxic, I think it can just be like learned negative behaviors, but I think there's some sort of intention, even if it's subconscious. I think there's a little bit of intention there, like being manipulative or things like that, or lying, right? But I think just being human, yes, it may put strain on a relationship, or the other person may have to like shift to deal with it, but I don't think that's toxicity, at least in the way that we're looking at it today.
I usually forget what we talk about on these, but something that just sparked my memory. Communication. Hey. That's what I harp on, right? So if you communicate with your partner and say like, hey, look, like, sometimes I might get out of hand and it's due to this. If you could just let me know in this way, don't attack me or like yell at me or anything. Mm-hmm. If you just calmly say like, hey, look, this is my limit. That's the healthy way of doing it.
Yeah, it's like, I will say, like, it's one thing I do really appreciate about Luke. We're able to have like actual conversations about things to a point where, and I've been in a lot of these I've been in abusive relationships, and like I'll get off the phone or I'll like leave whatever the conversation is, and I'll like stop for a second. I'm like, wait, did we just have a grown-up conversation about like stuff that we can find a resolution to? And like, it's okay. It's very strange to me.
Yeah, you get into abusive relationships and toxic relationships, and obviously they're not one and the same, but that's like a lack of communication, a lack of understanding is what turns into abusive, because it turns into spite, and it's like, I don't understand this person, I don't know why they're acting this way. But as long as you're taking strides and communicating, yeah.
What do y'all think, and I feel like this is probably more so up for like interpretation, but like to some degree, like abuse versus toxicity. Like when I think, with abusive relationships, right, that's a spectrum, and it can vary from emotional to physical to various other things. When I think of abusive relationships, I typically think of it's kind of like one-sided. It's one person. I guess you could both be abusive in a relationship. Whereas when I think of a lot of toxic relationships that like friends have had or been in, I think in a lot of those cases it can be one or it can be both people. Whether it's, again, like you said, a complete communication breakdown, they're just neither one's communicating. So then all these behaviors are coming out, whether it's when they're drinking or just when they're, get mad or aren't dealing with their own bullshit. But I'm curious, like, what you guys think some of the differences are between abusive versus toxic relationships, or even like abusive versus toxic, like flags or traits. And deep breath.
Well, I do want to like throw one thing out there, because I think there can definitely, and I've seen them among people I know, situations where the relationship is abusive on both parties. That's not necessarily like one person, and those are like horrible situations. But I think, man, that's a hard question. other than noting that. Mike, your turn.
Well, my mind goes directly to like, are we talking mental or physical abuse? Because like mental is almost invisible to some people. You don't even see it. You can't even tell it's happening.
Does that make it any worse or better?
No, of course not. But like I'm just for the first time seeing it on the outside, and it's horrible. You know, it's involved in manipulation and gaslighting and breaking somebody down to nothing and then building them up so that they're attached to you. And I think it usually goes like one person is usually more abusive because the other person's oblivious and codependent, maybe. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of accept the other person for what they think is just a flaw, but really they have like deep scars that aren't being acknowledged, maybe. Maybe I'm just talking out my ass, but I don't know, it sounds like it's making sense.
No, I think that's a good point. Yeah, I think that like someone could have like toxic traits, but it doesn't necessarily make it a toxic or abusive relationship. Whereas I think abuse is typically like more multifaceted. Mm-hmm. Whereas it could be that you're dating someone and they just have like this one particular like trait that is bad for your like mental health, bad for your relationship. In which case, I mean, sometimes people, if they acknowledge it and they're working on it, like you said, that's something to consider. But if they're just like, no, I'm not an alcoholic. What are you talking about? Like chugs bottle of wine at breakfast or something. So, I think maybe that could be an element of it too, where toxic can be a little bit more piecemeal, whereas I think abuse is a typically more comprehensive. Can you tell it's a work day?
Yeah, well, I think abuse is a little bit more focused. Is that that might be what you're trying to say? Versus I think there's a broader spectrum of toxicity. And I mean, I think for me, the more I think about it, abuse really comes down to like true harm, be it physical or mental. As simple as that. Just this person has done something to you in a way that is harming you, period. And on that note, a word from our sponsors.
Yeah.
Just the terms are very broad. They could be very broad. And unless you have a specific scenario, it's kind of hard to dissect.
I mean, I think they, in some cases, can also be like interchangeable. I just think about like abuse and abusive relationships over toxic as like more intense, more serious. Like you're looking at some more, you know, I don't know. On that note, something that can happen in either relationship, cheating. You may have forgotten, but I feel like, Mike, you had some knowledge from something you've been listening to, or maybe like a theory on, from one of your recent pods or something on like why people cheat. Did I just make that up?
I don't think I listened to anything, but like thank you, Marie. Give me a refill. No, just whenever somebody makes a statement about anything, I usually like being what's the word when you're the opposite stance?
Antagonistic?
Not antagonistic, but devil's advocate.
Oh, yeah.
I just like doing that just to try to analyze the other side of the argument, right? So it's like, oh, my boyfriend cheated on me. Okay, well, why the fuck did he cheat on you? He's not immediately an asshole, right? But something caused him to do that. He 100% could just be a horrible person. There's also reasons for him being a horrible person, right? And it's kind of your fault for not. It's not your fault, but but you should have seen that coming. You should have been like, okay, well, who is this person? Do I know him fully? And then it comes down to why did it happen? It's like so many factors go into why people cheat. It's not as simple as, oh, he's a piece of shit. It's like there's more to dive into. It's like, well, what caused it? What was his mindset? Did he put himself in a bad situation, which is just entirely on him? Fuck that guy. Or like was there no communication in the relationship? Was there, I don't know, was somebody unsatisfied? Was somebody not getting enough out of the relationship? And I mean, that's why I always harp on communication. But I don't know, maybe that's enough to give you guys to.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think when you dig into like just like research around it and psychology around it, and it's a much more complex thing than like that. But yeah, typically, a piece of it is, there may be like a deficiency that, maybe they're just not communicating that, or they've tried to communicate that. And, it's not being heard or responded to or whatever. I think that can be a piece of it. One thing that, I think is interesting is in a different, again, like public forum type community, this girl posted and was just, and this isn't just like a girls group, this is like a social group, and she had posted blah blah blah, yeah, like my boyfriend cheated on me, so newly single, and like some photos of herself, and a lot of people's comments and reactions were like, oh my god, you're so hot, you're so beautiful, yada yada. And it's interesting because I feel like we see that a lot with when it comes out that like in celebrity relationships that one person cheated, because they're like, how can you cheat on this person? And it's like that it's such an interesting view to me, because a lot of times it's so much more complex than like the actual physical act, and there's usually like some mental, like not issues, but like some mental reasons and some like environmental reasons and things like that. So I just think it's interesting that's people are like, what? Like, you're so hot, I would never cheat on you. And then they like slide into the DMs.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of it is they're totally using it as a slide, right? And part of it is also probably her putting that information out there because her boyfriend just cheated on her. She needs a little bit of an ego boost. I can't say I blame her. But one thing worth mentioning too is like there are different types and I guess levels, for lack of a better way to put it, levels of cheating, right? Like, did the person slip up one night, maybe have a few too many?
Don't say slip up.
Yeah, I know. I don't like fully, like, I'm not saying that's okay, but like, was it a one night thing? Was it a full-fledged affair? Were there feelings involved? Like, there are so many, and there's emotional cheating on top of all of that. So, I mean, to your point, like, I think it is very complicated. And I think my theory anyway is that when cheating happens, it's because there was already something amiss within the relationship. I would say more often than not, whether or not you're willing to acknowledge whatever was wrong.
Yeah, so growing up, I used to think it was just it was purely physical, right? It's just I gotta fuck something for guys.
Something.
But and I was right. No, like at certain ages, that's guys' nature, right? And it's generalized, but there are certain age groups where men mature and women happen to mature at a younger age first. But women also tend to want to settle down at an earlier age. Honestly, it comes down to as physical appearances deteriorate, women tend to want to marry and start a life, while men, like you see Leonardo DiCaprio, 50 years old with 18-year-old women. Men with status can attract younger women. It doesn't really go the other way around for females. So, I mean, ultimately, like, know who you're dating, know what age group you're dating in too, because that's gonna possibly stop that from happening. I want to say, I honestly, I like high school relationships, high school sweethearts, like they can last, but I think there's a lot of suppressed urges there, and whether they're acted on or not, I think they almost always remain. That's kind of a general statement, but I think it takes like a really, really down-to-earth, sweethearted person to make that last, as a guy, at least.
Interesting. It kind of ties into this like next question we have here, which is, and again, this is obviously just like our opinions, right? And it's, can you repair a relationship when someone cheats? And like you just said, if you see some of those relationships where it's been 10, 20 years, they've been together since middle school or high school or whatever, you said they might, continue to be together despite those things happening. So what do you think on that one?
I used to always say no, like they can't be repaired. And I still say no. Fuck that. No, like I get it. I get why people get back together. I, for myself, would have too much spite to try to fix it. And just too much confidence. I'd be like, all right, see it. On to the next thing. You weren't who I thought you were. It's the ultimate betrayal. Whether it was your fault or not, quote unquote, you put yourself in a bad situation. That's on you. It probably could have been avoided, because I've heard that excuse before. That's my take, Marie.
I mean, as somebody that did try to make a relationship work after the other party cheated, and it didn't, spoiler alert, it didn't work. To be fair, it didn't work for other reasons. And like, I think we were also a little bit too young to really uncover what some of those were, and too immature. But it really, like, I, on some level, agree with you. Like the Disney princess that's buried deep inside my cold, dark heart wants to believe that you can repair a relationship if somebody cheats. But like, we couldn't. Like, I was too hung up on what he did, right? And like that is a betrayal, and it cut too deep, right?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
You look ready. Go ahead.
I just want to touch on what I already said. Like, so it's extremely important when you are cheated on. I think I've been cheated on. I'm not sure. No, I definitely have been. Never mind. I remember.
As you're pointing at me.
No. Because you were holding the mic. It's important to analyze why you were cheated on, right? For yourself, like, not to save that relationship, but it's important to be like, okay, what was I doing wrong? How can I improve that in the future? And that's all I really wanted to say about that.
I feel like yes and no, because it's not like,
even if you chose the wrong partner, though, that's still something that,
sure, yeah, like kind of unpacking that, or unwrapping the flags leading up to that, or unwrapping like whether they tried to communicate their needs and you weren't listening, or things like that. But I will say, like, I don't know. I think the other thing, though, is like a lot of people will take it on themselves in a way that's very like harmful to their own mental health, as opposed to realizing like that was an action that the other person chose. Like, sure, any like, communication can always be better. This or that can always be better, whatever, in any relationship. But I do want to kind of like saying, for someone they have to think about what they did wrong. I don't think that's totally fair.
No, I completely agree. I'm literally saying, like, try to control the things you can. Like, you can't control other people, but you can control your own decisions and who you choose. It's 100% not your fault. We all learn as we grow, and like, I mean, I've been through, I don't know, 5 relationships maybe. I've learned from each one, and I'm a better person from each one, because I was able to like introspect and figure out, like, why was I even dating that person? That's all I meant by that, but you're right.
Yeah, wrong might just be the wrong choice of word. But I completely agree too, and I think it depends on the person, the situation, as to whether or not it could eventually be worked out. But in a lot of cases, I would imagine it would lead to something even more toxic than it was when it started, because of the adverse effect that can have honestly on both people, you know, especially if the person who cheated does feel truly sorry, you know, if they do. If they don't, then fucking leave them.
Yeah, I think what that has to look like is, because the other thing too, and this kind of ties into like staying with someone who's toxic, it's like once you've broken trust, there's so much work from both parties that has to go into rebuilding that. There is so much work, and just putting like a Band-Aid over it and saying, you know what, we love each other, we're gonna try. Fuck that. If you don't have trust in a relationship, in my opinion, like, you don't have the foundation for a solid relationship. Because I've seen a lot of, and been around a lot of extremely like insecure and jealous relationships, and they're so like, even though people make them work, it's so toxic in the sense of like how those people, like their own mental health, how they deal with situations. So I feel like you said, if you know there's an incident where something happens, again, not that we're condoning it, but this is a real thing that happens in real relationships, right, y'all? And we're always, you know, we want to be authentic and talk about real shit. So if something happens, I think that both people have to be committed to being honest about what led up to that on both sides, working with a professional, because you're probably not going to be able to work through it just by yourselves, and then genuinely being committed to putting the work in, and not just being like, I forget. Like, forgiveness, sure, is kind of part of it, but really it's more so working through those new insecurities that you may not have already had, those new trust issues that you may not have had. What are the things that triggers your partner's trust issues if you're the person who did it? So I think there's like, you really have to be committed to that, or we see, like you said, it just goes downhill and then they end up, you know, re-splitting in like a year or 6 months or 2 days or whatever.
Literally any amount of time. I think you hit on a lot of really good points there. One of the things, because I mean, we've touched on this whole honesty thing, right? It reared its head in your first story, Michelle, and obviously it's a big part of, you know, just even building trust. And it's something that we have in here as like a warning sign or a red flag. Super vague, but like, to me, I think that can show, for me, building trust is the hard thing. So once somebody has that, like, you've got me, right? For a lot of people that I know, they give their trust much easier. And I have to wonder, like, where the line is, right? When there's somebody that's like maybe even like fibbing, like a white lie.
I'm going to say it. That's interesting. I feel like I mean, trust when it comes to like me opening up emotionally, I think is a little bit of a different thing, but more just like baseline trust. I feel like I try to open by like trusting. And then if I start to see things, it's more like top down for me. Like I start trusting someone, assuming that what they're telling me is the truth, assuming that whatever we've agreed upon as our terms and conditions. Somebody help me. Whatever our statement of work is for the relationship, I would assume that they're gonna, you know, abide by our terms. Don't knock that over. Oh, it's in my hand. It's fine. Okay, everything's fine. Podcasting with dogs. But I was thinking about this a little bit, like dishonesty. One of the things for me is if they're lying about stupid shit. Like those, like you called like white lies, but if it's just weird, like things that you don't quote unquote need to lie about, that to me is usually a sign of like future and like more things, and that'll like trigger me to stop trusting someone pretty quickly.
It's fucking stupid and immature. It's like,
right.
Because like what is the point of lying? It's to get what I want. If I lie to you, it's because I want what I want, not what you want. And it's the ultimate form of selfishness. It makes no fucking sense. Even if it is something that's not really, it doesn't have a big impact, it's still like, why would you do that? Like, it's fucking selfish. It doesn't make sense. No, that's a huge flag.
I think we see that with like first, second, third dates too a lot, where Oh God, my fucking pet peeve is when I can tell that a guy is trying to either like answer my questions or frame things in what he thinks that I want, because I'm, I'm turning 30 this year, so I clearly want A, B, C, D, which I know, Mike, you've got the biological foundations for that. However, right, that doesn't mean that's where everything has like, it's like a gray area, right? Like it doesn't mean this. And so when guys like frame their answers or how they speak about what they want, and I can just tell because it feels a little too rehearsed and it feels a little too specific and it doesn't feel natural, like, but you can tell that they're kind of like quote unquote lying in order to make you think that they're on that page.
Well, and before Mike jumps in with our biological clocks over here, whether or not like we want that in the future at some point, right? Like that doesn't mean that we want it with you. Like our hero Jared says it all the time on You Up. You knew it was coming, Michelle. Like, and he says it from the guy's perspective, right? Is like the guy might have said that thing on the date. He might have said, yeah, I, can't wait to bring a girl home to my family. He doesn't mean you. Right. But I think the same applies for girls. And I think the reason men even bring that up earlier on in the dating spectrum is because they have that as a fallback. Oh, well, like not you. Well, buddy, not you either.
That's exactly what I just said. It's when they lie about that shit and they tell you what you want to hear, it's the ultimate form of selfishness. It's to get what they want. And you need to get really good at identifying that because it's everywhere.
You know what's funny too? So we have this other bullet point, jealousy. And this also ties in to my date from last weekend. I mean, I'm doing a slow ghost. But if I hear from him, I also haven't heard from him in a couple days. So if I hear from him, then I'll shoot him the this it's not me, it's you. But a couple of things happened. One was one of his friends complimented me, and to be fair, it was an inappropriate compliment.
Ooh, what was it?
He was just talking about how large and nice my ass is.
Yeah.
It's inappropriate. But I checked him and I was like, hey, I'm here hanging out with your friend, right? And I do understand how from like a male perspective, you're like, you want to not like defend your woman, but like I understand why, whatever. But also at the same time, like I will set my boundaries as well. And so there was kind of this weird thing. But then this guy like continued to bring the guy I was out with continued to bring that up like 15 different times that night in like more so like an apologetic way. But I was like, look, you can deal with your friend. Y'all need to deal with each other. Like if you feel offended by that, like I want to move on from this. I don't want to talk about this over and over and over and over and over and over again. Like I shit you guys not over 10 times. And then also the next day when I was bringing up the other situation, he's like, oh, well, you did something last night that pissed me off too. And I was like, okay, like what did I do? And he's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm just not going to say anything. And I'm just like, I will fucking kill you. And then he accused me of flirting with his other friend.
This story's going all over the place in bad directions.
Yeah, this is where I was saying too, when you've got multiple red flags or multiple traits, right? We're looking at, again, like dishonesty, like other behaviors that are not in line with what I'm looking for. And then also the jealousy. And then also this, like, you called it like the red herring or like pseudo gaslighting. Like, yeah, he's out. By the way, there will not be another date, but it just like tied in so well to kind of what we're talking about today. And those early signs, like I've literally met this guy 3 times.
If I were you, and I'm not saying you should have done this, but this is what I would have done. If the guy brought up for the second time, like, hey, I can't believe my friend said that about your ass. I would be like, hey, I'm here with you, right? How about you shut the fuck up? Like, that's it. So I'm done hearing it. Communication.
Yeah, at some point I did say it in probably different terms, but essentially I was like, hey, look, like, I can kind of handle my own. You need to deal with your friend later. That's y'all's thing. I already told him, like, what my boundary was, whatever. But part of it was because I mentioned that the next day as well. It's like, you, like, brought up these certain things this many times. She's like, oh, yeah, my memory when I'm drinking is bad, really bad.
All right. If we're using I'm drinking as an excuse for anything, that is very, very toxic. I'm just going to throw that one out here right now. That is not an excuse.
Wait, what if we had the Uber? We didn't in this situation, but what if you have the Uber driver take you through Whataburger at like 2 a.m. and drinking is your excuse for that? Is that toxic?
Did you want to do it?
Is it consent? Consensual?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the situation with this guy. I'm just saying, like, if we're using alcohol as an excuse,
It was potential.
like, I don't take myself to Whataburger sober.
Like, if you're doing things that are out of your control while you're drunk, then I don't know, grow the fuck up. It's time to not do that anymore. I can't tell you the last time I blacked out. I don't know. It was probably like 3 or 4 years ago. Because I don't drink out of control because I'm not stupid. I want to ruin my life or my relationships.
Or my memory, honestly. I've got dementia in my family. But I think, like, to answer your question, I think there might be a toxic relationship with Whataburger, not with the person driving you through the drive-thru. I think that might be the issue here. But I mean, I think jealousy is a really important factor to just kind of like future potential or lack thereof in a relationship. Because at least in my experiences, the guys who have been the most jealous have been the ones either cheating or getting damn close.
I've learned to just not be jealous ever. It doesn't do me any justice. It doesn't do the relationship any good. And it's like, if my woman is more attracted to somebody else who is hitting her up and she decides to go that direction, shit, I must have done something not as good. And if that's where she wanted to go, awesome. She can go be happy, and I'll be happy without her because now, we're both going in the right direction. So.
Well, and I was going to say, it's one of those things where it's like worrying about something that you don't have control over. And if you let that stew in your brain and in your head, those are the same place.
No, exactly.
Your brain lives in your head. You had a point, and then I'll have something else.
Well, I mean, it's as Jared would say yet again, it's just not the match, right? Like if she is doing something like flirting or whatever and like leaves you for some other guy, like that was never going to be the match at the end of the day. So I guess I understand what you're saying about like kind of training yourself to not be jealous. I can't say I've fully trained myself to not be jealous, but I have definitely realized through just like experience, okay, when I'm feeling jealous, why am I feeling jealous? Am I feeling jealous because of my own insecurities, which is what that guy was feeling, was his own insecurities? Or am I feeling jealous because like I am actually seeing something? And where is that line?
I think it's an inherent female trait, and it's something that y'all
guys feel jealous too, dude.
Let me finish. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I do think it's something more so females need to overcome, just because it's what you women talk about, right? In your social groups, it's about being this and that, whereas guys, like, not so much. If that makes any sense. Do you need more detail?
I need you to clarify on that. Like, yeah.
What do women talk about?
How big his dick is.
Well, no, just amongst women, just like,
I mean,
do you compliment each other? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. Like if you're saying, I get what you're getting at, is like women talk more about their dates and their dating life, and men talk about women and their dating, right? Is that your point?
That's not really what I was getting at, but
No. Well,
or so, like, I don't know, women compliment each other for, you know, their looks, or you know, Marie, help me out here.
Well, but being jealous of somebody isn't necessarily that you're jealous about their looks. Like, for example, the dude my ex cheated on me with looks like a fucking rat. I was not, and I knew from like when it started happening. We literally, my friends and I called her a rodent, and I was not jealous of the way she looked. I could not give two shits, but I was jealous because she was like flirting with my boyfriend, and I knew it, and I knew he was flirting back.
I am saying that in female social groups, I don't know really how to frame this because I haven't studied it, but
I'm just picturing you dressing up as a woman to like be at brunch with a group of girls, and then you've got like a little notepad, and you're just like, yes, I'd love another mimosa.
continue.
Writes note down. If we did skits, if we were proper content creators, this would be amazing, by the way.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Like women feed off each other's feedback and compliments generally. No?
No more than men.
That's false.
I don't know. I guess I'm trying to understand. Okay, so like women compliment each other more. I guess I'm trying to figure out how like complimenting each other ties into jealousy from your perspective.
Self-esteem and wanting compliments, like wanting to be complimented. Am I completely off base here?
Marie is nodding for those of you who can't see because we're not recording video today because Mike told us our videos were ghetto.
I mean, they are, but beside the point. I think I understand where your head is at, I think. But it seems a little misguided because not all women have that same like attachment to, let's throw love languages out there, like words of affirmation, right? And on the same coin, like there are still men who need words of affirmation as well. I just personally don't see how it's tied to jealousy, because I think jealousy runs deeper.
All right. Maybe my turn, please. Okay. All right. Delete everything I just said then, okay? Going back to the primate days, something I fucking know about, since I grew up around them, is, you know, women usually want your impressions are not helping. No, can you guys agree that women want the strongest man in the room, not physically, but status or mentally strong? Or I feel like you two are the anomaly. They're shaking their heads.
No, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I have a really good friend, and her and her husband both acknowledge that, like, he's more of a beta in the relationship, and they're extremely happy with that. Like, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't know.
I mean, this is 2021, and there's still, I understand that point of view, and I think there's still a certain level of relevancy to that, but it's also relevancy to a certain demographic of women and of men, to be completely honest, because not all men, at least in my experiences, want that alpha beta where they're the alpha either, right? And I don't think, with the way, like, not to get on a fucking feminist rant here, but like the way that women are and have progressed in society, they're not just sitting around like, yeah, I need a man who's strong and can father. No, like, we want somebody that's going to be a good match for us. We want somebody that at the end of the day is going to make us happy.
Do you want to go another 45 minutes here?
No.
Because
Because we're about to. I mean, if you have a point you want to close?
We've had the alpha discussion, haven't we? I feel like we have.
Offline.
Maybe we didn't post that episode, but I went on a rant for a long time.
Oh yeah,
45 minutes.
That might have been the day that I was too drunk for us to share the episode.
It's sitting right here.
I don't know if it was that, but
We haven't edited it yet.
it was where I did most of the talking. Anyway, bonus
The
material will be
the
released.
Nice Guys Friend Zone episode.
Bonus material will be released a week from now.
It's sitting unedited.
No, but it's the whole alpha discussion. If you guys don't want me to go into it right now, I won't. But I think I did already.
Well, let's circle back on that, and we can potentially talk about maybe doing like a book club and reading a book that you recommend. No, because here's the thing. Marie and I are very big on like having conversations about opinions that are different than ours, right? So maybe it's a matter of you suggest a book that you've read that is your, what you align with, and we suggest a book that we've read that's what more so like what we align with, and then we get on and we like talk through all of that. Like I love that idea for another day.
Yeah, I want to change the subject really quickly before I think we need to wrap. Because the one other thing that we've got listed here as like a potential red flag, moving too quickly, and I think that ties really nicely in with really nicely, not with codependency. Mike, I feel like you've got some thoughts on moving quickly in relationships.
Yeah. Where do you want me to start, though?
Wherever you want.
So it's weird, right? I've heard of people. Sorry, yeah, you go.
No, sorry, I was just motioning for you to have the mic a little closer.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna give you headphones next time.
What was I saying? So, I've heard of successful marriages where people meet and within 3 weeks are engaged. I've heard several instances of that, and they end up successful. Pretty strange to me. Yeah, I wouldn't fucking
Vomits.
exactly. But I've heard of it happening. I think it's extremely uncommon and dangerous. And did you want me to go into anything specific here?
No, I think it's just more so around like I think when we think about moving too fast in relation to this topic, right, to toxicity, it's like if someone's pressuring you to move too fast into a relationship, what is that kind of like a warning sign for? Or again, I think you'd mentioned to us like offline a friend who it seems like is being manipulated into moving really fast in a situation.
Yeah. Can you both give me an estimate of when an appropriate time to suggest getting married is, whether that's a proposal or not, but it's like, hey, we should get married?
Michelle, how soon is too soon?
The episode Mike didn't listen to. Yeah, so I don't know why, and it just might be something within my own brain or upbringing. To me, any big like life decisions, I feel like anything earlier than a year to me doesn't make a ton of sense, because you haven't, first of all, the first 3 months, whether honeymoon phase or not, like you're seeing a piece of someone, especially if you're someone who moves a little more slowly. So you're only seeing them maybe on a Saturday afternoon when they are like at their peak of happiness and hanging out, or, so I feel like the first 3 months is just like really just dating and understanding if you even enjoy being around each other. So I think that's a thing. And then there's a lot of like, I don't know, random, but I feel like I go through, for whatever reason, like I go through like lows, like depressive periods right before the holidays, and then sometime in the spring. I've just like noticed this trend over the last couple of years. And so if someone didn't understand what it was like to be with me during those times, I don't think they would be ready to understand what it's like to be engaged or be married. So I just think for me, a year is my general benchmark. Not that that's a hard and fast rule. I mean, whatever, but that's kind of where my brain goes, because you've like been through a lot of different things over that course of time in theory.
Yeah, I mean, I think a year is a good point for even somebody that's like looking to move quickly. And we also touched on this with the how long is too long, how short is whatever. You know, our success story, Bex, owner of Lazarus, like they moved into a relationship way quicker than Michelle and I could ever be comfortable with. But like we touched on it in that episode as well, they were both moving at that pace. And so I think that's also a really critical factor when, and like this is almost like a caveat, and having seen the relationship, like I do think it looks healthy from outside looking in. But I've also been in relationships personally where it moved quickly, maybe not too quickly for me at the time, but it ended up very toxic because in reality, it was too fast for both of us.
Yeah. So in short, generally a year before you start talking about it, right? What if the girl you're seeing lives in a different country, say Mexico, and completely hypothetical. 4 months into dating, she suggests that you should get married to her for specific reasons.
She wants a green card.
Could be. Who knows? This is news to me and to him apparently because he's never considered that. He might be being manipulated, but completely blind to it. I brought it to his attention, to which he's gotten extremely defensive and diabolical. Anyway, yeah, she. I'm not.
I think your point there is if someone's suggesting or speaking towards marriage at 3, 4, 5 months in, like, yeah, I would say that's definitely not even a red flag, but that's like, in my opinion, there's an ulterior motive there.
Might have an ulterior motive there.
That's literally what I was about to say. Like, it's the motive behind why do we want to get engaged, right? Like, with Bax and AJ, it was like, we want to get engaged, bless you, because we love each other. Like, we've decided that we are there. We are here for it. This sounds like there's some other factors at play. And so I think the motive behind it, or there's the other thing too, if you want to bring up women's biological clocks again, the women who want to get married quicker because they want to have babies.
I feel like you're attacking me with this. You brought it up several times now.
I know. Now I'm just bringing it up because you said it first.
I think it's a general age group basis on people who get settled. I think that's all it is. It's not a rule or anything, but it's something I've read. That being said, what you look like?
Waiting for you to finish.
No, I'm finished. Michelle, what you got?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, how fast you move too can depend on, like, what you said, kind of like, rather than age, let's talk about like life stage, right? So, for example, my parents got divorced. They both ended up remarrying, and they both did it relatively quickly after meeting their current partners, who they've now each been with for like 15 to 20 years or something like that, longer than their initial marriage. I think there's a difference if you've already dated, if you've already been married once, maybe you already have kids, or for a fact that you want to have kids. Like, I think there are some life stage differences to moving too fast or moving faster, but kind of bringing it back to how moving too fast go ahead.
No, I guess before you change the subject, 100% different life stages, definitely
right.
Different generations as well.
Right.
My dad's married 5 times. His fifth marriage came extremely quickly because they were like, "Hey, look, I just want this to happen. Do you?" And like, "Yes, of course, let's do this." You're like, needless to say, like, if you want financial security, sure, I've got it. Come here, like, whatever. We'll just be happy together. That's all. I feel like that's ultimately what it was.
Is your dad a sugar daddy?
I don't want to say that. No, but the family could be.
I kind of get what you're saying. Yeah.
You might not have to worry about living in a gutter.
Yeah.
If you marry my dad.
Okay.
But, too late. He's taken.
Damn it. 2021 goals out the window. Mike would.
If you were his stepmom, he would hate you so much.
You would hate me so much.
Just hate all around hate.
No, but one more thing is so obviously it's generational. Elle, the girl who I'm now seeing, actually
Sing?
yes, in a relationship. I don't. So like we're confused because we've been dating since like August. I guess we don't even know what our anniversary is, nor do we really care. So we just agreed on some random date. I
love that.
It's just how it went. I don't know, but needless to say, she was. We were talking about this over the weekend, and she was saying oxytocin developed in a relationship actually halts after 18 months, so a year and a half. You stop developing oxytocin generally. Obviously, this is all like, general. And then you don't fully understand somebody for at least 2 years. Now, I didn't ask for her credentials or where she got this
For her references in a PowerPoint deck.
Correct. But I do trust her. So that's what she said. And it sounds accurate to me. I mean, of all the relationships I've been in, they've usually failed after 2 years.
Well, and the oxytocin, that kind of contributes to the honeymoon stage, quote unquote, right? Which we all know ends pretty early on. I would have even said before 18 months. And then to your point, Michelle, earlier about kind of seeing the different seasons of somebody, then, I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. I think she makes sense. On that note, shall we all kind of go around? I want to end this on like a positive note. We're talking about a lot of toxicity here. So anybody got any notes on, repairing a relationship, moving forward, regardless if you're staying in or out, or just something really great that happened to you this week?
I wasn't prepared for that. That's not.
Why don't you go first?
That's not on our fucking list, Marie. How about you go first, Giggles?
Just hands the mic to Michelle, expecting an immediate answer.
Well, I couldn't answer my own question right away, but Michelle always asks questions that like she.
You're welcome for the save.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, best thing that happened to me this week was I went to ballet class. Although I realize I said this week and it is only Monday, so we can use last week as retro. But yeah, I went to a ballet class on Saturday and it was fantastic. And I felt like myself for the first time in months. So thank you.
So I'll say I just got back from a 6-day trip in Oregon, going to a wedding, visiting family. In one, like the wedding that I went to was on the smaller side. You could tell that neither the groom nor the bride were like the type of people, and I know them also, and I know that they're not the type of people that want to be the center of attention. And there was something really, beautiful that warmed my cold, dark heart about seeing people who truly like are in love and wanted to be married and wanted to just have that extra level of like connection. And it came out in all, like everything they did surrounding their wedding. It was beautiful. It was in La Grande, Oregon, which is a drive from Portland. But it was just really, I don't know, kind of like refreshing to see that, especially, Austin is very much a more casual city, and most of my friends here are single or recently in relationships. So it's kind of nice to go back and see that view of, what might happen in a few years. And then on top of that, just getting to spend some time with family I hadn't seen in, over a year and a half, some like almost 2 years. I got to see all of my living grandparents over the course of the trip, which is like kind of wild, and just really thankful for that. And, there's something to be said too for just like getting to see the people that truly like just love you and are like semi-obsessed with you and think you're the greatest thing. But there was something really like heartwarming about that, and kind of just motivated me to come back and just reassess some priorities and how I'm spending my time, what I'm working towards, things like that, because I think being as far as I am from family, I want to make sure that I'm here for the right reasons. But it was just a really good trip.
On the here for the right reasons note, we're a half hour into The Bachelor, so.
Is it my turn?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I just had the vaccine, so I got brain fog still, so I don't remember what's good in my life at the moment. No, I guess I had a bachelor party maybe 2 weeks ago. I honestly can't remember. And I thought it was going to be a fucking nightmare. I convinced them to come to Lake Travis, which means I had to board my dogs and pay them and pay for a boat that we kept for 2 days. Whole weekend ran me like $800, probably more. And I didn't want to be there initially. And then I got there and it was fucking awesome. And it was a good time. And now I'm going to the wedding next week. So yay for me.
Yay, wedding season is back, y'all.
Yay. I feel like, Mike, everything with you is like, I didn't want to do it. Fucking didn't want to do it, but it was great.
Oh, the girl who was living with me is gone as well.
There was a girl living with you?
Yeah. The situation I was dealing with for a month.
Ah.
Her and her dog. For a month.
Woof.
So they left. She left.
Well, on that note, Mike, do you want to let people know where they can find you, or do you want to remain anonymous?
I feel like he doesn't want to let people know where they can find him. That's actually why he's moving out of our building. He's like, these fucking bitches. Tell everybody where we live.
So, Michelle, where can people find us since we are just so public?
Swipe N the city across platforms. You can, obviously, if you're listening to this, you probably know where to listen, but Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud. We don't do much on Facebook or Twitter, but we are there. And you can always email us. We get tons and tons and tons of feedback. We've gotten 1 email so far. 2. We've gotten 2. So slide into our DMs, shoot us an email. Just remember, when you DM Swipe in the City, we both have access to that account. And it's not really a place to hit on either of us because you saw us online. Just a reminder, we will make fun of you because it is a fucking podcast account. Other than that, yeah, Mike, any last words?
Bye.
Bye.